welcome to Commander Central, Episode 8. We had an off week last week, which was not something we planned at all. We were going to do a show, and we scheduled, I think, 3 different times to record. One got bumped by a work project, one got bumped by my son spraining his ankle, and one got bumped by someone trying to steal Chris's identity, basically is what that wound up being.
Wonderful day.
So that was an exciting week for us. Luckily, Trump showed up, and he threw paper towels at all of us.
So, I watched that video, and I didn't understand it. I was just like, what is he doing? I don't understand.
Like he's a mascot at a hockey game with a T-shirt cannon. Like that's what that was, essentially. That made everything better. The paper towels, and we're all good. So we're back with Episode 8. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Just a reminder, you can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central and on Facebook at facebook.com/CMDR Central. I'm also going to start posting show notes on our website, which is cmdrcentral.com, and maybe on YouTube, just like links to stuff we talk about or deck lists. I'm going to try to do that. We'll see how consistent I am about it, but people regularly ask us for links to things we mention, and that's a good central place to put them every week rather than try to get them on iTunes and get them on SoundCloud and all the different places. I'm just going to put them on the website and we'll use it for links. So today we're going to do the usual. We're going to talk about games we played. We're going to talk about any news or user feedback we have. But first...
So today we are going to be talking about the journey an EDH deck takes. Sometimes, the building process goes, you see that commander and you instantly know you want to build it. You jam some cards into it, take it to the shop, and you start playing. And all of a sudden, 2 years go by and you really haven't done much to that deck, changed anything in it. And we're going to talk about what really happens when a big thematic change happens in your EDH decks and what causes them or why you even go through them versus starting with never changing that precon.
Right, like sometimes everyone tweaks a deck.
Right.
But sometimes you make a big shift to get the deck to work, and that's a very interesting thing, and it's a much different thing than making tweaks.
Yes.
So before that, though, feedback we had on Twitter.
We heard from Caleb Rideau at Crazy Sheriff. He said, love the cast as always, guys. Here's a fun question for you. What is the best, and I'm going to put air quotations, I won way you have won a game?
I had one, and I was probably going to use it for games we played if we would have recorded last week, but this is like my most recent memorable one. Playing at the shop against our friend Adam with his Door in the Siege Tower deck, and I didn't have a great board state, but I had been holding a Sudden Spoiling in hand to defend myself, even though against Doran, making his guys 0/2s, they still hit for damage, but I'm like, I can survive one turn, so I was holding it, and I had a Mimic Vat with nothing underneath it. And I also had to go for the Throat in hand, but he had like Lightning Greaves on his Doran, and he had something else, so I did not see how I was going to survive when it came to his turn. We moved to his turn, he plays Elesh Norn and swings, and I was able to kill his Elesh Norn mid-combat.
Yep.
Imprint it on a Mimic Vat.
Oh, God.
Make an Elesh Norn token, giving all his guys -2, -2, and then cast Sudden Spoiling.
Oh.
So he went from the Alpha Strike win to a wiped board state. And me with an Elesh Norn token, I could make it well. And his response to the best was he was just like, what just happened? And he was a good sport about it, but he was like, I literally don't know how that just happened. It was, I'd like to say I set it up, but I mean, if he wouldn't have played Elesh Norn, I just would have maybe bought a turn with the Sudden Spoiling. But because of the Elesh Norn, it looked like I was a genius.
Yeah, I think a lot of people rely too much on the banana head to win games. I've seen it a lot.
She's a great card. But it becomes the immediate reanimation target or whatever once it hits the field. So what do you guys have? Anything interesting that you guys have for memorable win cons?
I don't have anything specific, but the stuff that pops into my head is when I build my deck, I don't intentionally put a infinite combo or something that's going to win me the game that way. So whenever I discover that mid-game and be like, oh, I can do these 3 cards,
Wait a minute, this works.
And it's like, okay, cool, I just won. Those are the fun I win moments that I never do again because infinite combos are no fun.
You don't remember any time you've won with like a Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood combo, but it's the super weird stuff that always stands out.
Yep.
How about you, Chris? What do you have? Anything that pops out?
Yeah, I was playing against a friend of ours. Everyone knows him as Austin. This was years ago. He's playing his Animar deck. I was playing Mogus God of Slaughter. He was down to 4 life and had nothing on board. And I looked him right in the face, and I said, I will give you 1 turn to turn this game around. And then I played Mana Barbs and passed the turn.
Oh, no.
He laughed so hard, I laughed, and he pretty much scooped the
He's like,
game.
"All right, well,
And to this day, he brings that up. Like, at the end of the game, he's like, you going to play Mana Barbs again? I'm like, no.
That's great.
I did die this week to a Phyrexian arena, my own Phyrexian arena. I got hit by I was at 9 and someone hit me for 4 and someone hit me for 4 more and I'm at 1 and I'm like, because you guys are laughing, you're like, oh, Phyrexian arena, now you're going to die. And I had an untapped fetch land. I'm like, no, I'm not. And then I tapped that and killed myself to the fetch land. But I was going down due to my own cards either way. But that's not a win. That was a good question. Thank you very much, Caleb, for that. So games we played. Anything interesting happened in games we played this week? I'll tell you, we did. I know what Chris is going to say, but I'm going to throw mine out here first because you guys weren't there for this one. I was playing my Recce deck and ramped out very quickly. And I had quite a few permanents in play, and I had the Garruk that untaps lands for his +1. Along with a Nykthos. So I was able to tap Nykthos and a Mana Reflection.
Oh.
So I tapped Nykthos for like 22 and untapped it and tapped it for 22. And with lands and stuff, I cast a Genesis Wave for 52, I think. And this is on like turn 7 or 8. Adam Plasm captured it to get some mana. But he only had like 2 or 3 cards in hand. And like one of them was a land. So it comes back on his turn and he had like 50 some mana available, and like he played like a 2-drop and like a land and like, all right, I passed my turn. Like that's what he did with it.
Oh, Mana Burn, how we missed the.
Oh, that would have been insane with Mana Burn, but it was just like, I couldn't. I'm like, well, of course you plasm. Like, why do you not plasm capture that? Of course you do. That's a perfect thing. And he had no, like, why couldn't that have happened when you have 14 cards in hand or something stupid?
Yeah.
But it happened when he couldn't do anything with it.
That's hilarious.
Where's your Omnath when you need him?
Right,
52
exactly.
mana,
Exactly.
or your not Karametra. Who's the Crufix?
Yeah. So how about you guys? Anything interesting? I know what Chris is going to mention.
Chris
right now.
can go first.
So we're playing a wonderful game. I do believe it was a 5-player game.
Yep.
I was at 25 life.
23.
Was it 23? I thought
Yep.
Chris was 25. Close enough. Max decides to attack me with his, how do you pronounce her name? Lycia. For
24.
For 24. And then his comment to me after this was, you're the only person I could have killed. And I looked him straight in the face and I said, that is your commander. You could have killed anybody.
And
Yeah.
Max's response is, oh man, yeah. He forgot it was his
Totally
commander.
forgot.
That was fantastic. And really, like, in hindsight, you really were the only target because I had defense that he didn't know about, and I think the other guy did too.
It was
So
just
you were the soft target, but it was
his
that was not the-
comment about
right.
it was what got me. I'm just like, wait, no, you could have killed anybody.
That
This
was
is
pretty
why
good.
I don't like 5-player games. I forget the simple facts of the game.
And that one was kind of a long, lingering game at that point too. It had kind of taken its sweet time. So how about you, Max? You played Lycia a lot this week.
I did. That's the only deck I played. Oh, I played Jamalka once. But yeah, Lycia got 3 games in last night.
So we'll talk about this a little bit more because I think you want to make some changes to it.
Yes.
Large-scale changes, not tweaks.
Right.
So we can get to that in the actual body of the show. I played my Edgar deck quite a bit and had pretty good luck with it.
Who's banned now in 1v1?
He's been in 1v1 for sure. The 1-drops, at least for me, has been the way to go. The deck bounces back so quickly. The one thing I did really notice, I played it twice. First of all, Yawgmoth's Will is a great card. Like, I'm not going to act like it isn't always a good card. And we've discussed this in the past. People always want to do something like insane with it, and you don't need to. It's 3 mana, and if you get a fetch land back and a recast of Swords to Plowshares, that's
if
worth
you
your
get
3 mana.
2 cards out of there, it's worth it.
Yeah. So you always want to, people like think it should be doing something insane, but it's just a good card all the time. However, in that deck where like my average CMC is 2.44, and that's including Blasphemous Act as a 9-drop, which in reality it's not. It's almost always a 1-drop.
Especially with your board
Right.
states.
If I remove that from the equation, the average CMC of the deck is 2.33.
Wow.
So when I cast Yawgmoth's Will, and I did it twice last night, it's like, okay, I'm going to cast 7 1-drop vampires and a Vampiric Tutor and a Swords of Plowshares and a fetch land. It feels like Godzilla stomping on Tokyo. It feels fantastic in that deck.
Vampire Godzilla.
Yeah, Vampire Godzilla stomping on Tokyo. I've got a ton of draw in the deck right now. I have 11 draw spells, and I think I need a couple more. Because when you're playing those kind of 1-drops that quickly, you empty your hand if you don't have ways to
I
keep
don't know if
adding
there's
to it.
really any more that are worth it.
There's the 3 mana instant speed draw 2 from Shadows of Innistrad, I think. I forget what it's called. I was thinking about that. There's the one with, it's not Domain. What was in Battle for Zendikar where the colors converge? There's a black one that's 3 mana, and you draw a card for each color of mana you paid.
Painful Truths.
Painful Truths. There we go. But I don't know, because you have to for it to be decent, you have to spend 3 colors of mana. And how often
Are you going to have Mardu on the board?
Yeah, and then without screwing up whatever else you want to do.
Yeah.
I do believe there's one from Aether Revolt that it's just straight up 3 mana, pay 2 life, draw 2 cards.
And you get
yes,
2 energy.
Yep. And you get energy for it. There's also, I haven't put any of the red draw in there because I don't have a ton of graveyard interaction, but I could always just go with like a Faithless Looting or Magmatic Insight or something.
Do you run Cathartic Reunion?
I don't.
I like Cathartic Reunion because it's you draw 3 out of it.
Draw 3 and discard 3?
2.
Or 2.
Don't you discard first, though?
Yes.
That's unlike Faithless Looting, where you
Yep.
draw, then discard.
I just like the ability to draw the 3 cards overall.
Yes.
And I'm assuming you're running the 2 or 3 4-drops that draw
Yeah,
you
I've
3
got
cards and lose 3 life.
I've got Night's Whisper, Sign in Blood, Read the Bones, Ancient Craving, Ambition's Cost, a Phyrexian Arena.
All the black draw.
Skull Clamp. I forgot there's
You're
a
running
couple of these, a
Outpost
couple more.
Siege.
I'm not running Outpost Siege, and maybe I should consider that because particularly in a low CMC deck,
They're pretty much, you're going to cast anything that
you
hits
can
off
almost
of it.
always cast it. So that's probably good what I should look at as well. That's a good call. That's a good call. Particularly the thing that I didn't like with the red draw is I don't have any graveyard interaction. In some decks, it's not a downside. In this one, aside from Yog's Will, I don't have a lot of stuff that it's gone in the graveyard when I discard it. But
True.
that's a good point. I'll also look at Outpost Siege. That makes sense. So anyway, my Edgar deck, I did a lot of thinking about it, and I was really happy with it. So I don't think I need to make any big changes there. The next thing I want to go into here, Bryce Miller hosts a podcast called Talking Atlas. She also works with podcasts professionally. She does editing, and I was involved in a conversation with her about podcasts, and one of the points she made just kind of generally was a podcast should you should know what it's about. And just generally saying, well, we're about hockey or we're about, EDH in this case, isn't really enough. Like, you should have a specific thing that your podcast is about. And we kind of do, but we never really talk about it. Like, one of the things we wanted to do when we started this show was talk about being better at Commander. And that doesn't mean like more competitive necessarily, just like knowing how to tune your deck and like whatever the thing is you're doing, you can probably do it more efficiently or smarter or find weird old cards that do it better or whatever. That was kind of our goal here. And even though I think we work on doing that with every show, we don't really make it something we mention that we're going to now work on learning something. But I think once in a while that's a good thing to do. So this is a segment we're just going to call Things We Learned. And is there anything you learned this week playing Commander?
I have one.
What is your thing you learned, Max?
So in that 5-player game where I forgot Lycia was my commander,
you learned that you should remember who your commander is.
I did. I learned that following the order of priority could save you in a game. So we had an instance where Dana casted Austere Command to board wipe and kill all the small creatures and
artifacts.
And so I was the first player with priority, and I said, I don't have anything. Chris said he didn't have anything. And the person next to Chris, our buddy Justin, was kind of making sure everybody followed priority because it sounded like he had an answer. He was going to counter it because he was playing a blue-green Azuri deck.
But he also didn't want to blow his counter if he didn't have to.
Right.
Someone else would do it for him.
So our friend Adam, the fourth player in the priority order, all of a sudden he says, I render silent that. And we all kind of stop like, okay.
Particularly because we could tell Justin was about to
do something. So Justin's like, awesome, I get to save my thing.
Right.
The Austere Command got countered. Comes to my turn, and I casted something that made sure Lycia could get through or was unblockable or had Shroud. And I swung at Adam because
it was the equipment that gives her non-basic land walk.
Trailblazer boots.
Oh, yep.
And that allowed me to get through and kill Adam with commander damage, where I think if he would have held that render silent and let Justin play his counter spell, he could have saved himself. He could have lasted much longer in that game than the 7 turns he did.
And that really applies to any situation. Like, if you don't have to spend your resources to get something accomplished, don't spend them. But it's easy to do when you're like, particularly in Commander where everyone's a little bit sloppy with those kind of things, you just kind of go. But in those situations, you definitely want to like let it make its way around the board before you respond, because especially in a 5-player game, there's 3 other people that can jump in and get the job done.
Exactly. I think the bigger the game, the more you really need to pay attention to that stuff. Where a 3-player pod, okay, you have a Mardu player, a mono green player, and a blue white player. Okay, well, the green guy isn't going to do anything,
Right.
so you might as well just jump in.
That's and I miss that sometimes. There's times when I respond to something without taking my time and making sure someone else can't do it first. So that's a good thing to keep an eye out. The one I had last night, and I was intentionally doing this because it's something, a lot of times when I play at a night, I'll like intentionally put something in my head. Okay, tonight I want to not cast my commander in any of my decks until at least turn 5 because I need to work on being patient and not putting a bullseye on myself or whatever. Last night's thing was, if I'm in a position to kill somebody, I'm going to pause and look around and determine to make sure I'm killing the right person. I'm not just like wildly swinging away or something. If I can kill one person, why am I killing that person? And like work through the thought process. So I had a game where somebody, our friend Blake was playing a deck and he cast Decree of Pain and wiped the board. But I was able to flash in the Blood Crazed Paladin at the end of his turn, which is a new card from Ixalan. I keep saying land, it's Ixalan. Where he gets a +1 counter on it when it comes into play for each creature that died that turn. So it came in as an 18/18. So it comes back around to me, and I'm like, oh, Blake's at 17 life.
And
But
he just drew.
But somebody else is at 16, someone else is at 15. And Blake had really no board state because he spent Decree of Pain for 18. Well, the person after him then like rebuilt their board, and then someone else rebuilt their board. So his board state is nothing.
Yep.
But he just drew 18 cards. I'm like, man, I can kill somebody here. So I did. I'm like, okay, do I want to kill him? Do I want to kill him? I'm like, man, 18 cards is 18 cards. And even though he had to discard, he didn't have a Reliquary Tower out. I'm like, that's the target. So I like went through the thought process, determined I should kill Blake, and I killed him. And afterwards, he's like, oh yeah, that was a good call because I had, whatever he had in his hand.
He set his hand up by discarding.
So anyway, that's something like, I'm like, that was a good exercise for me to make sure I knew why I was making my decisions every single time. So that was my lesson for the night. And Chris had one. The Max doesn't know what his commander is. That was the thing.
I did play another game where guys playing a black-white, pretty much life gain, life loss type deck, kind of like Extort, but not really Extort, but all the abilities are similar to that. He turned 3 to Call of the Gatewatch for the mono black Sorin who puts a life total to 10.
Markov.
And the guy right next to him on his turn wheeled, and he cried and whined the whole game.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I came to the conclusion that people who build their decks based around combo base like that have made their decks very fragile.
Oh, for sure. You bet.
Because they build it so hard around that they don't have anything else to back it up with.
Well, I mean, and there are some metas where like everyone is packing. It's like, is it expropriate where you can dig in their library and take X amount of cards and exile them? Is that what I'm thinking of?
I know which one you're talking
about. Or the
about.
Jester's Cap does that.
Cap does it. There's a couple
bribery, acquire.
There's a couple black effects too that just exile cards straight up.
Praetor's Grasp.
Praetor's Grasp.
I think you cast it though with Praetor's Grasp. But
you,
anyway,
you exile it and you can cast it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually.
But there's definitely a couple of them anyway where you can do that, and like there's decks where metas where people run all of those effects because there's so many combos that if you can just shut off somebody's combo, they're done.
You see a general and you're like, okay. If you're not playing combo, good for you. But if you are, I know what pieces in that deck I have to get rid of.
All right. Well, let's move on to the body of the show. Let's talk about evolving your deck in like a large way. First thing I want to say, evolution's a lie. That's just liberal bullshit. Magic is less than 7 years old, and any evidence to the contrary is the devil trying to fool us. Oh, but beyond that,
I use a stone. And it evolves me over time.
That makes sense. I believe that. So let's talk about this. Like we've all done it at different points in the past. So give me an example of a deck that started in one direction and you had to change it.
Curtis, do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
You can go first because I have quite a few decks on here.
So we'll start with me. And as Dana mentioned, my Lycia deck is my current evolution in progress.
Sure.
So when I built this commander, I knew I wanted to go more towards the Voltron side of the scale of deck themes. Because I don't have a Voltron deck. I've tried it in the past. Hit or miss, whatever.
Sure.
Backstab people.
Well, that's another story for another day. Instead of going equipment-based, I'm like, oh, geez, people don't do Exalted. a lot.
Right.
And in red, white, and black, you get a good chunk of the exalted creatures with white and black. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to shove all the cheap exalted creatures in here, play Cathedral War, and that's a cool way to buff Lycia without actually throwing 1,000 swords on her.
Right. You're not getting 2 for 1 then. If
Right.
Lycia dies, when you recast her, the exalted triggers are still there next time you attack.
Yep. Or
We're
I
paying
can...
too much life to put counters on her.
Right. So, I built it that way. I played it the first week, and I realized that if Lycia does die, these little 2/1s with Exalted don't do much
Sure.
on their own.
In addition, I've noticed too, at that point, Lycia is your only target.
Yes.
Like, no one's going to Swords of Plowshare as your Knight of Infamy.
Nope.
Does it have Pro White? Maybe they won't anyway. I forget. But
Knight of Infamy is the pro white one, yeah.
Okay, so they definitely aren't going to Swords of Plowshare. But
Right.
no one's going to Lightning Bolt your Knight of Infamy or whatever.
Exactly.
So it's double folded. The buff isn't that good, and your other creatures, just nobody cares. They're just not a threat.
It was too cute.
Yes, and I appreciate, because I myself have done the same thing where I'm like, there's got to be a way to use Exalted
Without
outside
Rafik.
of outside of Rafik, right? So this is well, and we discussed Chris's Alesha deck on here a couple weeks ago. You're also making an evolution to that deck,
Yes, I am.
so that's a good one to talk about here quickly before we go into past decks. So what are you changing in that deck?
I'm moving away from the heavy reanimator theme, more towards an ETB theme.
And you had been doing that, but you're still you're taking the next step and getting rid of.
Because I noticed so much graveyard hate is in our meta right now that it pretty much just locks my deck down and I don't do anything.
Sure.
But with Alesha having a reanimator on a stick, I can move away from the cards within the deck that actually reanimate and then focus more on the ETB effects.
Until everyone starts running Torpor Orb, and then you start.
Yes. Don't even get me started.
Just build 2 Alesha
There we
decks.
go.
One's the animator, one's the ETB,
And
and
then don't tell them which one you're playing.
foil
they would know when. Well, yeah, I suppose I could foil both
foil
of them
both
out.
of them
but-
out, and no one will know. Same deck boxes, same sleeves, everything.
Nice, I like that.
What about you, Dana?
I don't have any that I'm in the Oh, I do have one. We mentioned on here a couple weeks back that I found the Talrand deck that I forgot I had because it was sitting behind a bunch of stuff. I will post this on the. I took a picture of my home office, which is where my Magic stuff is stored. I took a picture of it last weekend for something else, but I'll post it on the website. It was a disaster area, but I spent most of Saturday, and so that's how I lost the deck. It was sitting behind something that was behind something that was behind something else. So if you see that picture, you'll understand why I couldn't find this deck. I've since fixed that problem. It's all nice and neat, and I've cleaned everything up. But so the deck hadn't been touched for one in like 6 months, and part of the reason I had set it aside and hadn't been playing it and had forgotten anyway was that it had gotten a little bit boring in that I was running a bunch of theft effects in it. Because, hey, why not steal something and make a Drake? That's a good deal.
Yep.
Except for it just got unfun for some reason then, because when you're running a bunch of theft stuff and people know you're running a bunch of theft stuff, then they alter how they play a little bit, and it slows the game down. And I had that same problem when I was running Marique Ribéry years and years ago, and this didn't do it that badly, but it still kind of did it. So I'm changing that deck back. I'm getting rid of almost all of those theft spells and just running as many cantrips as I can. So I'm just going to be like running, every ponder, opt kind of effect I possibly can, because that will be more fun for me to play, where I'm just like making drakes and drawing cards and making drakes and drawing cards, and I'm not ticking anybody else off. And I think that'll be more enjoyable. So that's the switch that deck's making.
The Drakes are 2/2s, right?
Drakes are 2/2s with flying.
Why Talrand over the Locust God? Besides,
For no reason other than
Okay.
I don't have a mono blue deck, and
Okay.
I had the shell already there, so that's the only reason.
And I heard everybody talk about building a Locust God deck, and I have yet to see one.
I have not either. I don't know why that is.
have one sketched out.
It is pretty linear, I think.
Yeah.
Because like every deck list I've seen is pretty much the same as every previous deck list. Although that's probably true of Talrand to a degree too. But Locust also can kind of lock people down, and you're one-shotting people pretty easily, I think, with that deck.
It's Nekuzar tokens,
Which
without the
isn't
black.
right. That's not really my style. I think this will be more fun to goof around with and just play a simple game where I'm just making a bunch of junk and drawing a bunch of cards with crappy ponder type spells. So that's the evolution that deck's taking. So how about past ones you guys have done? Because we've done this in the past before. So and why and how did it work out?
So do we want to talk about decks that we changed or decks that we've given the axe?
Both. Well, let's talk about one. Well, so we've talked about these are moves we're making. Let's talk about decks that you've evolved that have succeeded, and then we can do some ones that didn't,
Okay.
that you couldn't salvage. So how about ones that weren't quite working and you made a big switch and the deck wound up working after that change?
Oh, most of mine worked as they were. I just changed them because I didn't like how they played.
Well, okay, all right. So what's an example?
Why don't we start with Mogus, I guess. First time I built it, it was pretty much Rakdos, good stuff.
Sure.
With Mogus at the helm, redid it to 100 card AoE, or straight up, I didn't do nothing but just burn all of my opponents.
It was basically as many Mogus type effects as you could run.
Yep.
Everyone's taking damage all the time from everything.
Oh, it was
Mana barbs
so
that you
wonderful
mentioned
at
earlier.
that time until people decided every time I sat down, they were just going to forget everyone else on the table and kill me first.
Well, what happened initially, and I remember like seeing this, the first time you played the deck, you're sitting down and you're like, oh, it's 2 damage from Mogus or attack a creature,
Not
whatever, I'll
bad.
take 2 damage. Like then you play something else, you're like, okay, whatever, it's 3 or 4, I can deal with that. But you're not taking damage, and all of a sudden people get to that point where like, oh, I'm at 9 life, and Chris is still at 26. And the person next to me is at 11, and the person over there is at 13, and like, this is not going to end well.
Nope.
So eventually everyone caught on that like, even though it's only 2 damage the first few turns,
Yep.
you can't just ignore that because it's not damage you're
Everyone
taking.
tries to pay me back at least 2
Yes.
damage on their turn. So
So what change did you make in that deck then?
as of now, the way it's sitting, it changed from straight up AoE to adding more creatures to defend myself. And I packed it full of removal to blow up other stuff.
So basically now instead of having a bunch of things that do Mogus stuff, you still have Mogus, you still have a few of those things.
Yep.
But it can take a long. You're willing to like take more turns to do that because you can
Yes.
survive.
Yeah.
And you're also probably drawing less heat. If people are taking a little less damage, if they're only taking the Mogus damage or 1 or 2 more things, then they're less likely to come gunning for you. And if they do, you can defend yourself.
Yes.
Versus before where you're like, all right, guys, everyone's on a 3-turn clock. Good luck.
I think my favorite addition to that deck is the creature that makes all damage wither.
Yes. That's
Yeah, the black-red
see,
one.
this
Yep.
is where the deck's going now. I am currently sketching up changing it over to Scorpion God.
That was what I was going to
And
ask. Sure.
Straight up Wither. It's going to be everything I can pack in there with Wither or cards that give neg counters, just because I want to show that Rakdos can draw all the cards too.
That was a funny thing for a minor tangent. When the 3 gods came out in Our Devastation, Scarab God, not that people didn't like Scarab God, but like that was the one that people were like the least excited about. Like,
Yep.
oh, it's another zombie tribal guy, whatever.
Yep.
However,
He's
That's-
also the most
that's
expensive
the
card right now.
$25 card. And I've seen multiple Scarab God decks and not seen Scorpion or
Locust.
Locust yet.
No.
For whatever reason, everyone was kind of like, yeah, it's Scarab God. He's the least exciting. He's fine, but whatever. And that's the one people built.
Yep.
And it's the one that gets played in standard. So yeah, that's
I
just been
also-
a strange thing.
I think that's because zombies. I mean, it's a tribe that
And-
work.
and a lot of people already had existing zombie shells, and it was easy to swallow. Like in your case, you switched out Geese and Geralf to Scarab God.
I noticed I played your Scarab God when you had it. It pretty much played the same as Geese and Jolf.
It did.
Yeah. Okay, Max, how about you? What decks have you evolved and how did it work?
Well, let's take my Dramoka deck.
All right.
When my very first EDH deck was a Sigarda Host of Herons deck.
I remember that
way
vaguely.
back in the day.
And it was just kind of Selesnya good stuff?
It was Selesnya good stuff because that was about the time I started playing. Was Avacyn Restored and Strahd Gatecrash. So I didn't have much of a card pool to build out of. So it's
Sure.
just pretty much block constructed EDH. And over time, I took it apart. I built some other decks, and then Dramoka, the Dragon Lord Dramoka came out, and it's a flyer, can't be countered, and you can't play spells on my turn. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. So that started as Selesnya good stuff all over again.
Okay.
And, I put in cool ground beaters, but over time it's like this just it didn't have a theme, it didn't work, it just didn't jive.
Sure.
So I slowly switched over to the all flying theme.
Which is particularly weird in green.
Right.
Granted, you have white, which has a lot of flyers, but
It's like a 70-30 white green
Sure.
deck. And ever since then, the flying theme works because if Dramoka's on the field, I can cast these 7-drop angels with no problem because I have my mana doublers. I have every ramp spell in the book in that deck. So if I'm lucky, I can get 12 lands out by turn 4 or 5.
well, we also have talked about this when we talked about your deck too. green has this handful of draw spells that are based on the creature's power. Now, Rishkar's Expertise is nice because if someone kills the creature that's the biggest, you should still get something because
Right.
the odds are there's a second smaller creature. But like Soul's Majesty is targeted creature that you control. So if someone kills that creature, your spell just fizzles. Well, that's not a concern for you. You do not care about that. People can't cast spells on your turn.
Right.
I've seen so many times you like Soul's Majesty and I'm drawing 9. I'm like, oh god,
Hunter's
that's just
then into
disgusting.
Hunter's Prowess.
Hunter's Insight. I mean, there's a couple different ones. You run all 3 of those and Rishkar's Expertise.
Yep.
I do find Dragon Lord Jamoka interesting because every time we sit down and play, there's at least one person on the table who tries to blow it up on your turn.
Yes.
And I just sit there and shake my head going, you can't do that.
It's usually one of you two sometimes too.
Right, yeah, for sure. Somebody last night when you were playing did a stop and check and they're like, wait, Dramoka's not out, right? I can cast this?
Yep.
So somebody actually had like, an effect of their turn.
I like that deck because it really makes people think.
I like the fact that it's all flyers and white-green. I think it's just a weird thing, and I think that's cool too.
Yeah.
So that was the evolution you did there. The one I will mention quick that worked for me is my Ghost of the Trader deck.
Oh, I love that deck.
I wanted a Death Touch deck, so I started off with a bunch of Death Touch creatures. But for some reason, my commander was Sapling of Kolfanor, who's black-green, because it's indestructible. I'm like, it's indestructible. I wanted an indestructible commander because I thought that was going to be super strong. So it was my only thing with no Death Touch, which kind of bugged me, but I'm like, whatever, it's all super powerful. And it didn't really do anything because it reveals the top card of your library and you gain life equal to its toughness and lose life equal to its power. So it's supposed to be like in some kind of a Tree Folk deck. I think Adam runs it in his Doran deck because it has a big butt on it. And like if you're running a Tree Folk that are 2/6s or something, you're going to lose 2 life and gain 6, and that works out nicely.
Yep.
So as I'm playing the deck, though, I was playing it, and every time I got Glissa out, even though I had like just a normal few artifact package in there, I'm like, man, Dust Touch and First Strike is really, really good on a creature. And playing against it, at some point I switched decks with somebody else, and this person got my Glissa out in the deck. I'm like, that is so awful to try to swing into or have swinging at you. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe I'll try it as my commander just to try it. That way I can get it out more often. And then the next step was, well, it has this artifact ability. Why not put more artifacts that do things in the deck? So then I started going through and finding things like Triangle of War and finding, every Glissa deck runs Executioner's Capsule, but there's a bunch of those things. Hey, why not run, every Bauble to draw a card and then play it again, and it costs 0 mana, and I can draw, 2 or 3 cards over the course of the game for nothing. So I started doing all that stuff, and that's the evolution that deck went through from I wanted a Death Touch deck and had no plan beyond that. Aside from I ran a bunch of lure effects at first. I also had
I
6
remember
different
that.
lures.
Nice.
That was so gross.
But it
like,
didn't win me the
they
game.
all have
really.
to block,
Right.
and you're just like, I guess they all die. Okay.
So that was the evolution that deck made. So now I have the Death Touch stuff is still very useful in the deck, but I'm also doing enough Glissa stuff that I have a backbone behind it that gives the deck power too. And it's kind of a unique deck because of the Death Touch creatures, so that I like
And
that.
you didn't get drawn down the rabbit hole of combo with her.
And I'm not running a combo deck, right? Although there are lots of good synergies and interactions in the deck that are strong, like Viridian Longbow and Thornbite Staff.
I don't really consider that combo because it takes so much mana and to get it online to go, and it can be stopped at any time.
And it just kills just kills creatures in play. It doesn't actually like win me the game. So how about evolutions that didn't work? And here's the most recent one for me. I built an Archangel Avacyn deck several months ago. And I tried like 3 different ways to make it work. And I kind of enjoyed playing it just because Boros is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just, I have no consistent way to make the deck do any of the things I wanted it to do. I started off trying to run a bunch of creatures that I could sack at will. That way the plan was to be able to flip her and then blink her back and then flip her again with sacrifice effects and doing that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But it just wasn't like good enough to actually accomplish anything. I could do it. I could flip her and sack something and flip her again and do those kind of things. But I wasn't actually getting much accomplished aside from killing a few weenies and doing that kind of thing.
I know when I played against it, my biggest worry was I would count your mana and see if you could play Avacyn. If you couldn't play Avacyn, I felt safe to do anything I wanted to do.
Kind of the same situation as Max was in with Lycia, where when all of your creatures but your commander are bad, then no one's worried about anything but killing your commander.
Yep.
And that was the situation in that deck. So then I tried to, I added some more creatures and worked on who cares if the creatures could self-sacrifice, because I was running stuff that was like one white mana, sacrifice this gremlin to destroy an artifact. Instead of doing that, I was running a few sack outlets and like better creatures, so I could, but it was the same thing, even with slightly better creatures that I could sack, then I had to have a density of sack outlets to make sure one was always out to flip Avacyn, which means you have to run like 7-ish sack outlets to consistently make sure you have one. And at that point, then it takes out so many slots that you better be doing something really good. In my Teysa deck, I'm running a ton of sack outlets, but I'm always doing things with those sack outlets. I'm making stuff off Teysa or Field of Souls or bouncing the creatures back or whatever. That Avacyn deck, if I get a sack outlet out and sack a creature, well, I flip Avacyn, and that's it. Like, that's where the interaction ends. So I could just never make the deck do a thing, really, I guess. I could never make it effective no matter what iteration I tried. So it's still together, and maybe at some point I'll give it one more go, but I can't find whatever it is it needs.
I don't know, maybe you have to make it a Tribal Angels deck or something.
The problem is, doesn't she not flip if an angel dies? It's a non-angel creature.
Is it a non-angel? Yes. Oh, that's a sad day.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a lot of good red-white angels.
Yeah,
so.
right. And most of the red-white angels are relatively expensive to cast, too. Whereas, I mean, I guess she's 5, but that's still pretty good compared to, like, Aurelia, who's 7 or whatever it is.
Yeah, she's a Sarah Angel with a ability.
Yeah. So what do you have, Max?
I have a couple. My most recent one would be I tried to do a Beast tribal deck.
Oh, that's I forgot about that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in quite a while.
Oh,
I forgot about that too.
He got ripped apart. I used Sarok the Dragonclaw, so the Teamer one.
Okay, yep.
As my general. And I'm like, I want to do Beast Tribal because like that's when Protean Hulk got unbanned and it was super cheap. And so I Scryfalled Beast in those colors, and I found all the ones that seemed interesting, and I ordered them, and I threw them in a deck with some lands and some spells, and it just didn't work. Like, the beasts are expensive. They're 4 to 8 mana to cast on their own, and in 3 colors, that's hard to hit when they're all 2-color casting costs. So it just didn't work, and when you have Protean Hulk stolen out of your deck 2 or 3 times in a night, you just don't want to play that anymore.
And even pulling Protean Hulk, because you pulled it.
Yep, I did.
But that just solved that problem. It didn't like fix the rest of the things with the deck.
I think the biggest issue is like a lot of the older beast creature cards do something with +1/+1 counters. They always, you either get one for every beast you control, or when they attack, they all get a +1/+1 counter. And I didn't go that route. I think that was where my issue was. I didn't go that route. I instead just went with all the beasts. And maybe if I were to revisit it, I'd try that route. But I think there's better +1/+1 commander-esque themes you could do instead of beasts.
Traxa.
Right.
I mean, there's quite a few of them. Missouri.
Mimeoplasm,
and that's that thing that happens too. You're like, okay, if I evolve this deck in this direction, then I'm probably just better off switching it out entirely.
Yep.
Like, that was kind of the reason I quit running my Mimeoplasm +1 counters deck, is because Atraxa exists.
Yep.
And there's just nothing that deck does that Atraxa isn't better at doing. And there's so many Atraxa decks that are kind of similar to it that I just didn't.
And she's just a better general and overall, because I mean, flying, vigilance, lifelink.
Mimeoplasm was really good at the end of the game when there was a bunch of cool stuff. Death touch, flying.
How about I just look it up?
Vigilance, lifelink. Yep. So yeah, she was just better for anything I wanted to do. So there was no point in doing anything else with that deck.
The other one I can think of is I used to have a Tajik Blade of the Legion deck.
And you tweaked that quite a few different times.
That was my pet deck for about a year and a half. So it started as Boros tokens.
Yep, that's right.
And it's Boros, so right there is a problem.
Yep.
Then I went into the Voltron theme because he's indestructible. That was right after Tuck got taken away, so I didn't have to worry about Tuck. I had all the swords. I had all the fun stuff. Did that for a while.
Backstabbed a few people.
Backstabbed Chris once, I say. And he's still sour about it.
I don't trust you anymore after that.
There's a political lesson there, kids. If you make a deal with someone and you backstab them, they'll still give you crap about it years later.
Yep. After the Voltron thing didn't really work out, I went to an all-indestructible theme. So I played all the Darksteel stuff. And Darksteel Colossus at 11 mana in Boros is impossible to cast, is what I learned. So that was pretty much where that just stopped. I said, you know what? I'm done with toying around with Boros. It's too much of a challenge for me at the time.
Sure.
Granted, I've evolved as a player since then. That was 4 years ago. So who knows what I could do now? I mean, Boros in general has kind of evolved. Red's evolved with card draw and stuff.
Yeah, Red's helped.
I
Their
still
card
don't
draw's got
think
a
it's
little
that
better.
great.
No, it's still not
It's
good.
still the weakest color combination by far.
But like Dana said, it's a challenge, and maybe I need to revisit that.
So, are there any ones that you have changed because they weren't fun? So here's I'll give
That's
you.
pretty much all of mine right
Is
there.
it okay? So the first one I'll give is my Tesa deck. The main thing at one point I was running, like, it wasn't a stacks deck, but I had the main pieces. I was running Dictator Erebos. I was running
Grave Pact.
and there's a white one, 6 mana, and I didn't write the name down on
Martyr's
it.
Bond?
Is it Martyr's Bond? I forget. Your Max is going to look it up. And it made sense in the deck because I sacrifice creatures continuously.
It is Martyr's
It is
Bond.
Martyr's Bond. Okay. Was that from a Commander product only?
It
I
was
think?
from the Commander 2011 product, so
Okay.
the first one.
So I was running all 3 of those, and because why not? I'm sacking stuff constantly in that deck and bringing it back. Hey, resummon Skeleton. I'm going to sack it and recast it 6 times this turn. Why not gut everyone's board state? The problem was I'd get these soft locks where I could keep anyone from having creatures in play, but I couldn't win the game for several turns.
I've been in those games with you.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so I'm like, and it wasn't fun for me. I'm like, because I would then feel bad because I'm like, no one can do
Yeah,
anything. 'Cause
you
if they
apologize
do-
like the whole time. You're like,
Yeah.
I just have you guys locked out, but I can't do anything. I'm like, it's fine. I'll just keep drawing cards till I find an answer, or
Right.
you kill me, one or the
Right.
other.
But that was like that wasn't fun for me to do. So I took those pieces out and like built more token things in to win with tokens. And now the deck number 1 is more fun to play, and I don't have to feel like I'm. People have been working their jobs all day and they put up to Commander. Now they're sitting here stuck, unable to play because I have a soft lock on the board. Now that's not the case. But the deck also at the same time works better for killing people. So in 2 ways, that's
I
evolved
did
the
notice
deck.
last time I've played against it, it does seem to play a lot better than it used
Yeah,
to.
it plays
Yeah.
much faster now. So there's definitely situations like I'm going to miss those edict effects if I'm going against your Lycia deck, where oftentimes it's the only creature out, and I want that'd be great to Grave Pact away, but whatever, that's perfectly fine. If I'm enjoying the deck more, that's what's more important to me than anything else.
I think the card that put that deck over the top when you made that change was Anointed Procession.
That really helped. It has really helped that deck out for sure, because it's kind of one more piece that if it's out, it puts me over the top. Having that out, I think there's probably a lot of token decks that Anointed Procession really helped out, particularly ones that don't have access to green. So now we just need to get a mono white doubling season, and we'll be all set.
Oh God, no.
I think that's a mistake they will never make.
No, they will never make that.
So do you have anything, Chris?
I'll start off with Bruna. I do believe it's called
Oh.
Bruna Light of Alabaster.
Correct.
I started with her. Was
I
not a fan.
I don't remember you playing that deck
I do.
I played it like 2 or 3 times, and then
because I had Runa deck for a while too.
Yep. Started with her, didn't like the ability that, sure, I can nuke one guy out of the game in a quick hurry, but then she doesn't stabilize and she can't control
Yep.
herself. So I switched it over to the Black-White Daxo, so I'm not remembering his full name.
Dex was returned.
Yes.
Enchantment-based.
Yep.
Didn't like that because I just felt like it was lacking, which now has turned into my Ural deck, which
Okay.
I absolutely love, and everyone else hates it.
I love that deck.
I wouldn't say hate it. I don't mind. It's tricky to interact with.
And I purposely made it weaker than it could be.
Sure. Oh, for sure. But even then, even that's one thing kind of nice about Euro. Like, I'm gonna put this crappy 1-drop enchantment on here, and he still gets +2/+2 and whatever the enchantment does,
Instill energy. 1
Yeah,
mana in
right.
green, give him haste and pseudo vigilance.
and +2/+2 because of
Yep.
his ability. Sure. Yeah, that Earl deck's definitely much stronger
Yeah.
than either of the previous 2 versions.
Yeah, the other 2, I pretty much just put the axe on my problem. Never build them again because I found a better way of doing it. But I mean, for anyone who plays Bruna, if you have an amazing way that you have it set up, I would love to see it. Because I mean, I thought it was fun. I love the color combination, but it just didn't stabilize. You nuke one person out, and then they somehow kill her, and then you're just SOL after that.
Man, we could have almost done a show on decks we tried that we dropped for some reason, because that's a whole deal unto itself. In this calendar year, we've all probably built at least 1 or 2 decks that
And
we've tried
benched.
and now have taken apart.
I've had a
since
few of
then.
them that I've built and haven't even brought to play because I built them goldfish, and I was like, yep, nope, this ain't going to work.
That's awesome. Okay, so how do you know, like, at what point, how long does it take to figure out, this isn't working and I need to make changes.
Well, obviously for Chris, it takes a goldfish.
Right.
and-
Chris, it takes 6 seconds.
Yeah, well, sometimes when you are goldfishing, like I don't know if you guys goldfish your decks, but you goldfish,
For sure.
and you're just
Yep.
like, yeah, no, I know exactly if I was playing against
Oh,
any
yeah.
one of these like 10 decks, I would be just done.
Yes, for sure. I've done that where I'm like, this is absolutely going to work. And I like draw 7 cards and I'm like, no, this is. wait, now let me try again. I'll shuffle this up and draw 7 more. No. Okay, well, I've just goldfish 15 hands and none of them get me close to anything happening.
Well, I guess to answer your question properly, then I would say at least 5 games. I would have to guess with the deck. I like to go consistent games.
Sure.
Like not play it once and then bench it and then play it once again the next week. It'd just be game after game after game. So you get relatively even spread out of all your cards.
You do need to get
Yep.
some reps in usually. How long did your beast deck take? Because the first night you were fairly happy with it, I
Yep.
thought.
I think I played it for 2 weeks at the shop. I played it for probably 2 or 3 games each week at the shop, and the third game of the first week is when Protean Hulk got stolen repeatedly in the same game. The next week I did it without Protean Hulk, and I
Yep.
just couldn't. I knew then it's like this is. I don't know if it's color combination or like I said, the creatures just cost too much
Sure.
on their own in 3 colors. It's not fun. It got set on the table at home and eventually got ripped apart.
Yeah, I've had that too. Those decks where you show up for the first week and you're like, oh, this is going to work. This is going to be all right. And then you realize, oh, it's not.
Right.
I think your Odric deck did kind of the same thing. Your first couple of weeks you were playing, and I remember you liked it, and then it's I haven't seen it played in a long time. I'm assuming you.
It's called the charity case deck is what it
Yeah.
is.
It's still in the deck box.
Okay.
It's missing 1 card because I traded it to you, my anointed procession.
Oh,
But yeah, I mean that is just it's a charity case.
but
and
you liked it at first.
I did. I do. It's one of those decks where it's either gonna go off right away and I'm gonna win, or like I think I said in the episode we covered about white cards, it can't recover after 1
Right.
board wipe. Everything is a little too expensive. There's not enough draw. 1 board wipe, my hand's usually empty, if not 1 or 2 cards, and I just can't rebuild after that.
Well, here I've got a good example of one. I built a Kemba deck, and if you guys remember me having a Kemba deck, but I had one.
I do not.
Well, here's
God, I don't remember
Yep,
neither.
it was at the store Nomad in town, but I remember playing it. I can visualize. I came in with it. We sat down and played, and you two were both there. I played it and drew my opening hand, and I had like 2 pieces of equipment and a lightning greaves. So I played the greaves, played Kemba, put greaves on. I had a token the next turn from lightning greaves. I took the greaves off, played like a sword, put the greaves back on, and I just rolled. Like at one point I had, like 10 cats out, and I just killed everybody. So I got up and we're like shuffled up for the next game, and I'm like, yep, I got a keeper. I walked over and bought a mono white deck box. The
Satin Tower.
The Satin Towers. I'm like, there's my deck box for it. It's a white deck, and I'm buying a white deck box. I'm like, I guess I'm gonna keep playing this. Went back and played like 3 more games and realized, oh, without lightning greaves, people just kill Kemba immediately. And I spent the whole game trying to recast and re-equip Kemba. So as I'm driving home that night, I'm like, well, I bought the deck box for it. I'm like, so what can I do to fix this? So I put like Swiftfoot boots, and I put, I think, Champion's Helm, and I had Mask of Avacyn in there, like anything to give Kemba hexproof and
A buff.
or Shroud, anything to keep people from killing Kemba. So I came back the next week and played it twice more, and in both those games, despite having like 5 or 6 pieces of equipment to give her protection, I didn't draw any of those equipment and had the same problem, did nothing. I'm like, okay, so either I double this up and find like a dozen different ways to give Kemba Shroud and hexproof, which doesn't sound like a very viable option, or I'm just not playing Kemba. So I took the deck apart because there was no out. There was like no way to evolve that deck aside from I put all the protection in it that I could think of, that I could find in my box. If you're running Mask of Avacyn, you're digging deep at that point.
Way deep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I made my evolution, and that didn't work either. And every Kemba deck I've seen since then has had the same exact problem.
I've noticed I've played Frank's Kemba deck before, and once Kemba dies about 3 times, and I've watched Frank do it, he tries to recast Kemba. I ignore Kemba after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I start focusing on the other creatures that I have and start suiting them up and just going that route.
Right, yes. That's one thing I think Balin solves that problem immediately, because when you play Balin, you just equip Balin for 2 mana.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, that is so good. So I'm not going to rebuild the deck, but if I had a Kemba deck, I'd be for sure making it into a Balin deck. All right, I think we've talked about that at enough length. We've all made the big changes, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
Oh, I have so many lists of decks that I've asked. It's
Me too.
unreal.
Maybe we'll put that up on the website for show notes. I've got a few of mine, at least put a few lists up. So yeah, I think you should look at your deck. Like if it's not working, like, okay, do I have a sub theme here that I can change to something else and see if I can fix it? It's worth trying. Doesn't always work, but it's worth looking at.
I would say the focus on what's causing your deck not to work. Are
Yeah,
you
for
missing
sure.
removal? Are you missing card draw? Are you lacking on good creatures?
Is it too reliant on my commander?
Yes.
Yep.
And then can you fix that? Because maybe you can't.
A good example is I had a Marin Clan of Neltoth deck,
Mm-hmm.
and that got benched. It's been torn apart for, 2 years now?
Yep.
And the reason that got benched is it played the same way every time, no matter what. You needed to get Marin out, and you needed to put stuff in your graveyard, and you had to bring it back.
And then it got dirtily too, where you would do a lot of things, but not
Right.
not get anything done.
That same soft lock issue you had with Teysa.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I had it with just in a different colors, and it got to the point where it's like, no matter what I do to this deck, unless I get rid of Marin, this deck is always going to play the same, no matter what I draw.
And have the same problems and be very vulnerable to,
Yeah,
a simple Leyline in the Void or Rest in Peace.
exactly.
Is going to screw you over.
Luckily, back then our meta was not graveyard hate heavy.
Why are you looking at me?
You brought this on yourself.
Yeah,
I
you
did.
But
We actually had the Torpor Orb conversation because I played it in a game last night against a deck, and Adam's like, all my ways to kill your Torpor Orb are turned off by Torpor Orb. Sorry, man. No, 'cause I think he said he has like 45 creatures in that Animar deck, and he's like, my only removal is on a creature.
Just
and
play Naturalize, which, by the way, fun fact, I heard this is the first time that Naturalize has not been printed in 14 years.
Yeah, that's not
Standard,
been
yep.
standard legal.
Yep.
I saw that. That was crazy. Okay, for our sign-off question before we leave here. So we just got support for 2 neglected tribes, cats and in the commander, and then 2 tribes in Ixalan, dinosaurs and pirates. So what obscure tribe would you like to see get some love next?
I want to go last.
All right.
I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm a huge Slivers fan, so that would totally be me.
They're not obscure, but they have not seen anything since M14?
M15.
15.
M15?
But they weren't good in M15, aside from the indestructible guy.
The commander was nice. The Sliver Land was pretty useful.
Yes.
And
And I think-
Bone Scythe.
Was
Oh, I suppose, yeah, they could be useful, but overall...
and there was a double strike one, I think.
I think that was all M14.
Yeah.
But M15s were all like bigger drops. The white ones sucked.
Magentic Sliver, though. Let's not talk trash
Hey.
about that. Since, for those who don't know, Max has 79 Magentic Slivers in a binder.
Let's be specific. The time-stamped Megantic Slivers.
Yes, right.
No, I suppose if I had to choose an obscure tribe, maybe we can go back to like Kithkins.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
I have quite a few Kithkin cards, and I thought about trying to do a tribal, and I've looked it over, and it's like, no, not quite yet. We need some
there's
more.
Bridget.
they say soldier. A lot of them say soldier
They do.
or knight.
They do,
Yeah.
but I'd want to do Kithkin.
Right.
Well, you said knight, Max. That would be my choice. There are 200 knights. There's 213 technically, and I think this is including Ixalan. And there are 16 legendary knights, which surprised me.
Are there really?
Yep, but none of them care about other knights.
Oh, I suppose they're all pseudo-type knight.
Yeah, they like Martin Stromgald is a knight, but I mean he doesn't care about knights. Or
Edgar's a vampire knight.
yes, Sidar Khanda of Jamura is a knight, but I mean it has no interaction. I think the closest we have Hakken Stromgald Scourge is a mono black knight, and as long as he's in play, you can play knight cards from your graveyard, but you can only play him from your graveyard. You may play Hakken Stromgald Scourge from your graveyard, but not anywhere else. So you can't run him as your commander unless you have some way to. Well, you can't.
I don't think there's any
there's
way,
not even any way around that. I don't think.
unless they consider command zone an exile zone, so you could play. Well, no, because he's a
There's no way-
singular
yeah.
color, so you can't really rip him out
So
of exile.
technically, you could play him as your commander. You could bring him into your hand with Command Beacon.
Yep.
Right.
Discard.
Discard.
Oh no!
Discard him and then bring him into play, and then bring your Command Beacon back with, Crucible or something, so you have a second go at it. So technically, you could play mono black knights with Hakken Stromgald Scourge as your commander, but that seems like a lot of work. Adriana, Captain of the Guard, who has melee out of Conspiracy, would kind of work because a lot of knights have protection. So if you're, you can swing at
she would
multiple
be
people.
red-white, correct?
She's Boros. So your creatures all get +1/+1 for each opponent you are attacking. So if you're playing a 4-player game, they each will get +3/+3, assuming you're swinging at 3 people.
Yep.
So if you're playing like a white knight, throw it at the person playing black, and if you have a the red knight, throw it at the person playing green, or I forget what it has protection from. But so you can put a knight commander there, but I'd like to see one that actually cares about knights in a much more interesting way.
Have to make it a king of knights.
Yeah, that would be something like that actually
so you can
fits.
go medieval theme or something.
I also thought about ninjas, but we're getting ninjas, I think, in the new uninterested set. I forget what it's called. On something.
Uninterested.
I'm uninterested. So I think we're getting ninjas there for some reason. That doesn't really help Commander, but so Max, you have something you clearly want to say.
I
here.
do.
So what's your tribe?
My tribe, there are 41 cards in this tribe. The most recent original printing of this tribe goes back to 10th edition.
All right, the most recent original printing of this. So we have not seen this tribe since 10th edition, is what you're saying.
Correct. It's been reprinted a couple times, but the original printing of a card hasn't been since 10th edition.
Wow, I'm going way back in my memory banks, and I can't even.
Trying to think what would have been. It's only 41 copies. So
Only 41 of these types of creatures.
Yeesh. I don't even have a reasonable guess.
We're talking about slimes.
Kavu.
Oh,
Kavu! Well, you've mentioned Kavu.
I have.
You like Kavu before.
I do.
well, couldn't you just consider them dinosaurs?
Aren't they like
Technically?
Weren't they like slivers, predators, or something? Wasn't there something there with slivers?
I don't remember because they originated in the invasion block.
We'll have to look
So
that up.
invasion would have been dragons, because
Yep.
that's where the
They look
second
more
set
like
of dragon
they
lords
look
came.
more like beasts and or dinosaurs,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
in their original arts. But yeah, there are 41 Kavus. None of them are in blue.
Okay.
Majority of them are in Jund colors, green, red, and black. And
There's no legendary.
there's no legendary, and there's only one in Naya.
Is there not one that is, since we're talking about invasion block, that would have the kicker cost that would be in blue?
I'm looking right now.
Because I think there's a Kavu that gains flying with a kicker cost.
And at
that's
least in blue, if they were in blue, you could run Misform Ultimus.
Right.
Hey, this is my
I do
Kavu
not
commander.
see any blue.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up because I thought that there was one that had a kicker cost.
Are they
in
on
blue.
Dominaria? So could we get them conceivably in Dominaria this spring?
Quite possibly.
Nice. There's actually quite a few things I'm hoping for from Dominaria. Like I'd like to see kobolds come back in Dominaria. That's
That'd
the
be
only
cool.
place we've seen kobolds really is Dominaria.
Let's get a kobold token because I do believe that there is no kobold token that was
There
ever
is
made.
yeah. There's no 0/1 kobold token. I don't think.
I use.
Didn't we get one in Commander 13 because we got the Kobold land?
I don't think we did. Maybe we did because I know Parash makes them too, but I don't think they came with tokens.
What I use, I've given it to a few people. I have a bunch of the old. I think they're from the Dark set, or Alliances or something. But it's a 0/1 kobold for 0. Red
Yes.
kobold.
Yeah.
I give that away to people because I have a whole bunch of them. Just like, here's your kobold token. Use
Le-
that as a token.
Legend. I think they were Legends
Legends.
definitely had
Okay.
them. Yeah, 0 mana. And the art's terrible. It's like
Yep.
there's like one of them's picking his nose. And yeah, there's a bunch of just awful kobold-looking arts. But that would be cool to see kobolds come back. Dominaria's got a bunch of stuff I'm kind of hyped for.
And we might get a token with the new F&M tokens that they're doing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Have they given the list of what those are going to be yet? Do we know what the creatures are?
I'm not sure. I didn't even ask at our LGS last
I
night.
didn't think to either. We'll have to look that up. Maybe find that out for next week because I'm curious what tokens we actually get.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's episode 8. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.